Everybody take a deep breath. Those are all very, very heavy readings. But they are extremely important for us to begin to understand. How many of you know about liberation theology? How many of you know about Black liberation theology? All right. So Black liberation theology is this big overarching understanding that throughout the Bible, from the beginning all the way through the Hebrew Bible, all the way through the New Testament, that God's movement of spirit is always toward liberating the poor, the oppressed, the marginalized, the despised, those who are falling through the cracks, that God's wish, God is on the side of justice and liberation and freedom, and that God wants us all to move toward that. Black liberation theology looks specifically at what that means for our Black brothers, sisters, and siblings, especially in the face of slavery, as I said this morning, the 246 years of slavery, the 100 years of Jim Crow, the 50 years of the housing discrimination, of I've lost all of those in my head, but you're getting what I'm saying. That Black liberation theology takes all of that and says that God's movement here on this earth, here in this country, is to move us toward freedom, toward equality, toward equity, to cancel, to get rid of, to break that oppression that really pushes us down. And Black liberation theology understands that and says very, very, very clearly that it is actually a very challenging liberation theology for those of us who are white. That the oppressors do not like liberation theology. I'm going to give you a minute to think about that. That the oppressors do not like liberation theology. Liberation theology, as oppressors, as those who are white, we have grown up in a country that has taught us about, well, it hasn't really taught us about white privilege, but it has taught us that our whiteness helps keep us safe, that we get good jobs, that we are well educated, we can have houses wherever we want to have them. We do not have to fear for our lives when we are traveling on I-40 from Asheville to New Mexico, right through the southern states. There is no reason for us to fear because the color of our skin keeps us safe. Black liberation theology tells us that we must use our privilege to enhance, empower, bring about the liberation of those who are not white, and we have to own and understand the power of our privilege. We can't just unconsciously go through our lives and not recognize that everything from our house, our jobs, our families, the educations that we grew up with and were given, the fact that we got scholarships and got to go to the colleges that we wanted to, has a lot to do with the color of our skin. And it is time for us to step back and to say, we get that, and we will stand in solidarity, in allyship with those who are oppressed, those who are marginalized, those who cannot just live in any neighborhood they want to and walk through those neighborhoods safely. And so Reverend Dr. James Cone, who is the creator of Black liberation theology, it was his life's work from the beginning of his career to the end of his career. And The Cross and the Lynching Tree is the very last book that he wrote that was published not very long before his passing. Dr. Cohn was a professor at Union Theological Seminary where I graduated, and so I got to really get to know his theology just by going there. And he says very clearly that the cross and the lynching tree are one. And that shifts our theology, doesn't it? So that every time we see a lynching, and I am talking about also today in this era, every black brother, sister, and sibling who has been gunned down by police in police brutality, everyone who has been gunned down because they have walked through the wrong neighborhood, everyone who has been martyred, everyone who has brought about the Black Lives Matters movement, say her name. All of our siblings, all of our black brothers and sisters who have lost their lives due to hatred and racism, they were lynched. Our current lynching tree is a gun. Our current lynching tree is a gun. More often than not, those who are currently lynching our black brothers and sisters are police officers. Right? And so today, as we started this worship, I said, we are in resistance just by being here. And yet, James Cone says you need to take it one step further. Not only do we need to acknowledge what is happening, acknowledge this lynching that is happening all around us, we need to be the voices that call forth justice, that work to end that. We need to be the freedom riders. We need to be the moms who stand between the rioters, the Black Lives Matters rioters, and the police who are in full riot gear. Remember back to that time when we were seeing all of the Black Lives Matters rioting and what was happening to our black brothers and sisters as they were standing up for justice. In that movement of moms who decided that what they were going to do at the height of COVID was to stand between and to allow that peaceful rioting to happen, that peaceful protesting to happen. We cannot stay silent. We cannot sit with our white privilege and watch what is happening. Not now, especially not now. Our black siblings need us to stand up and to say to the current administration, this is not okay. Diversity training is a must. We must all continue to do our own work, or we get stuck in the systems of oppression and institutional racism, and we just go with the flow and don't think about how those are affected who are not white. We have to dismantle those institutions, and it is our job. A lot of times we would like to say, well, we'll empower and walk next to our black brothers and sisters while they dismantle the systems of oppression. But who put the systems of oppression in place? Whiteness did. It is our job to dismantle the systems of oppression. It is our job to listen to our black and brown brothers and sisters and say, how can we support you? How can we protect you? How can we be your allies during this time when you are getting discriminated against, oppressed, marginalized, day after day after day? It is no longer microaggressions. It is now full-out macroaggressions at a constant level, and it is our job as white allies to say, we will stand with with you and in front of you and protect you from these macroaggressions so you can live your life fully as a beloved child of God. So let us recognize that liberation theology asks us to recognize that we are the oppressors, even though we think we're not. Let us own that. Let us wrestle with that within ourselves. And let us, day after day after day, stand strongly dismantling the systems of oppression that are getting built higher and higher and higher. And we can start here in our church, out into the community, out into the state of Colorado, out into the country. I'm going to say that again because you all probably went, what did she just say? Let us start dismantling the systems of oppression that are ingrained within our church. Here, First Plymouth, that none of us acknowledge or want to think about. Let us dismantle that first, and then move outward in the concentric circles, dismantling as we go. Friends, will you commit to the hard work of dismantling the systems of oppression at First Plymouth so liberation and freedom is for all of us? Will you? May God be with us as we do that. Amen.